auf einen Quadratkilometer. Und es ist ihnen das nicht gelungen. Und mögen Sie sich erinnern, dass Sie über all diese Trennungen hinweg Angehörige eines Volkes sind. Nicht nach Menschen, sondern nach Gottes Willen.
Did Hitler shoot himself in the Führer bunker, or did he slip past the Soviets and escape to South America? Countless documentaries, newspaper articles, and internet pages are devoted to Hitler conspiracy theories. Well, one man has chosen to debunk all of them. Hitler's Death, The Case Against Conspiracy is the book. And Luke Daly-Groves joins us live from Liverpool. I'm Andrew Krystal. Welcome to Krystal Nation, and thank you for joining us. Luke.
Thank you very much for inviting me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Immediately after the war, the Soviets helped spawn some of these conspiracy theories. Please tell us what happened in March and April 1945.
The Soviets didn't actually capture the Führer bunker until May 1945. So would you like me to talk you through the last days of Hitler?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's been many books written about the last days of Hitler, and it's become sort of iconic in discussions about the Third Reich. And there are several sort of key events which historians always refer to when they discuss this topic in their books or documentaries. So I'd say the first is perhaps on the 20th of April, so this is Hitler's birthday celebration. And it is quite a bizarre occurrence. And this is perhaps one of the last times that all these leading figures of the Third Reich are together. And 2 days later, you have Hitler's famous downfall rant, or what's become known as the downfall rant, because of all these parodies on YouTube. And of course, the brilliant film Downfall depicts it really well, where he throws his pencil across the map table and he admits in the bunker for the first time that the war is lost, and he would rather blow his brains out than be captured or suffer the humiliation of defeat. So from that point onwards, Hitler basically descends into a suicidal spiral, if you like, although I do say in the book that he oscillates between confidence and anxiety. He sort of preserves a sort of glimmer of hope, if you like, that some sort of ghost army is going to come and save him, or an existing army which is trapped and encircled by the Soviets is going to be able to break through the lines and rescue him from Berlin. But of course, this never happens. Instead, what happens is Hermann Goering tries to take over the Third Reich, which is actually quite a sensible move in hindsight. But Hitler interprets this as a betrayal because he sees it as Goering basically just being ambitious and humiliating Hitler, saying that he's not in a position to rule, which Hitler obviously disagreed with. And then you have Heinrich Himmler betrays Hitler by starting negotiations with the Allies, or at least attempting to.
They're all trying to save their own ass.
Yeah, basically, the probably the most loyal person to Hitler at that moment, arguably, is Eva Braun, who only hours before they commit suicide together, they get married in a bizarre wedding ceremony. And Hitler explains this marriage in his last will and testament, in which he writes that he's chosen to take this lady as his wife and die with her instead of suffering the humiliation of defeat or capture. Shortly after the wedding and dictating this will, he retires to his room in the Führer bunker. Nobody sees what happens behind that door, except those that carry his body out of the room and those members of his close staff which enter the room. They all give their eyewitness accounts of what they saw. And I think the most important for Hugh Trevor Roper, who was the British intelligence agent who investigated this, was Arthur Axmann, the head of the Hitler Youth. And you can actually see Axmann on a picture with Hitler. But Axmann sees Hitler on his sofa in his room, slumped over the armrest of it with blood dripping down his temple, and he sees Eva Braun next to him with no blood stains on her body. So
who took that picture?
There was no photographs taken of the suicide, but Axmann during his interrogation produced a sketch which I've published in the book, showing the position of the bodies on the sofa. So they basically carry the bodies out into the garden, cover them in petrol, set them alight, and they give a final eerie Hitler salute before they retreat to the bunker. Now, the Soviets, they capture the Führer bunker in May 1945, and the first Soviets to enter the Führer bunker is actually a group of women who steal Ava Braun's lingerie, obviously in high spirits, having just basically defeated the main city of Nazi Germany. And what happens then is that Soviet investigators arrive, the people that are actually supposed to be investigating what happened to Hitler. And first, they think that a body in a water tank could be Hitler, and then it turns out that it's not Hitler. And then they think that a body which they found in the Chancellery could be Hitler, and then they realize that it's not Hitler. And in the meantime of this taking place, they actually dug up the real remains of Hitler and Ava and reburied them. And only when they realized that these remains, these false Hitlers, if you like, weren't actually Hitler, did they exhume these remains, the actual remains of Hitler and Ava, and have them autopsied. Now, shortly after this takes place, so the results of the autopsy, which say that Hitler and Ava Braun committed suicide by poisoning, the results of these investigations are sent to Stalin. But in spite of this, Stalin turns around and says that he thinks Hitler could have escaped to Spain or Argentina. And this kickstarts a lot of rumors of Hitler sightings all over the world. And it really provides the sort of impetus for the main British intelligence investigations into Hitler's suicide, because, as you can imagine, it put a lot of strain on Anglo-Soviet relations in this already tense period.
Well, the Allies had already smuggled out a lot of Nazi scientists, which later went on to help the space program and develop nuclear weapons. So Stalin was concerned, or at least wanted to paint the Allies with a brush, that they were hiding Hitler or allowing them to escape, because many Nazis did escape with the help of the Vatican to South America. So this was a way for Stalin to also tar the Western Allies by saying that you've helped Hitler escape.
Yeah, that was probably one of the motivations behind it. As you know, I think it was in September that all Soviet newspapers on this one day, they claimed that Hitler was hiding in Hamburg, which was in the British zone of Germany, which was really embarrassing for the British government, as you can imagine. But historians have speculated about all different reasons behind why Stalin might have claimed Hitler escaped, and they're all quite valid. But I provide a sort of original explanation of my own in the book, which relates to what I've just said about the Soviet investigations and the initial misidentification of corpses, is that I think Stalin might have been embarrassed that the Western Allies had actually collected more reliable evidence and done a better job at investigating Hitler's last days than the Soviets had done, and when they were even in possession of the bunker. So that could have been a reason why he didn't want to admit that Hitler had killed himself.
Did they ever find, Luke, did they ever find Hitler's remains?
The Soviets they certainly found Hitler's jaw and his teeth, because they were identified by Hitler's dental assistant and his dental technician, both of whom had worked on Hitler's teeth. And they were also, just last year, they were identified forensically using modern methods by Philippe Charlier, who's a French scientist. And before that, Radar Sognaes, who's another forensic scientist in the 70s, he compared the Soviet documents with the records.
Do we have any, Luke? Is there any DNA of Adolf Hitler available?
There
are Hitler relatives on Long Island.
Well, I don't know about that. I've seen a documentary about Hitler's relatives not so long ago. But
they didn't die in the war. They didn't die in the war, and they emigrated. They left Germany.
You're talking about William Patrick Hitler, who fought for the Americans during the Second World War.
His sister
and his relatives, yeah, and his sister, yeah.
So the Allies does the West have DNA? Were they able to corroborate scientifically Hitler's remains?
No. So the only DNA tests which have ever been done on remains which were supposed to be Hitler's are the DNA tests which were conducted in 2009 by the University of Connecticut. And these were conducted on a piece of skull which was damaged by a bullet hole, which the archivists in Moscow and some historians claimed was Hitler's, and therefore proved that he committed suicide. But these results, when they came back, it was actually shown that the skull belonged to a woman. And the conspiracy theorists who wrote the main conspiracy theory, Grey Wolf, they claim that the skull was of an age too old to be Ava Braun. So it can't be Hitler's and it can't be Ava Braun's. So what I argue in the book is that this doesn't really change anything. All it shows is that the NKVD have picked up a piece of skull from the Reichschancellery garden where there was lots of bodies, and claim that it was Hitler's for reasons of their own, it doesn't change the fact that the teeth are definitely scientifically proven to be Adolf Hitler's. Another sort of scientific test which has been done on forensic evidence is the NKVD tested the blood type of the blood stains which were on Hitler's sofa, and they found that it matched and it was Hitler's blood type.
Do we still have that evidence? Does that evidence still exist in the Soviet archives?
Yeah, that evidence is in the Soviet archives, and it's published in a collection called Hitler's Death. I think it's the last great secret from the archives of the KGB, and it's an edited collection of Soviet documents, and they're all published verbatim. And it's a really good resource for historians, because I don't speak Russian, so I can read all of these documents in English as they are, just copied directly from the Russian files. And yeah, it's all there.
See, the problem, and I'm going to be dealing with people who believe that the moon shot was a conspiracy, that we didn't land on the moon. A lot of these BS conspiracies. There are real conspiracies. The John F. Kennedy assassination was murky and mysterious. House Select Committee on Assassinations in '75 made determinations that there was a conspiracy to murder JFK. But from that mountain, do not other mountains make? In other words, everything is not a conspiracy. And this concept that people would be making all kinds of money on documentary channels promoting the fact that, this theory that Hitler escaped is absolute. It's nuts. And Robert Baer, they were able to dragoon him, who was a reputable CIA operative and a frequent CNN contributor. I couldn't believe how embarrassing it was to watch Robert Baer participate in a Hitler escaped Germany in South America conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I found that quite bizarre, because I'm sure he didn't, but if he employed the same sort of method of evidence analysis in his CIA work as he did in hunting Hitler, then America could have been in quite a lot of trouble.
Yeah, hunting Hitler, it was nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a selective methodology, isn't it? That they take these files labeled Adolf Hitler and they go through them and they pick out rumors of him escaping to the country that they want to claim that he escaped to, and they ignore the context of these files. They ignore the people who are spreading the rumors, why they're spreading them. They ignore the conclusions of the intelligence officers who actually investigate the rumors, such as J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI. He comes out and states categorically in my book, to paraphrase, that there's no substance to the rumors, that they're nonsense. The FBI even goes to Argentina looking for Martin Bormann, which I reveal for the first time in my book as well, and they don't find anything. Again, the rumors turn out to be nothing.
Martin Bormann was killed, I think, trying to escape, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
in a bombing raid or something,
yeah.
Or artillery?
No, he was trapped on the way out of Berlin, and it looks as though he bit down on his cyanide capsule. Arthur Axman thought that he had been shot in the back by the Russians because he was the only person that saw him dead at the time, which is why Trevor Roper didn't conclude that Bormann was dead until the forensic evidence came out later.
Very quickly, Luke Daly-Groves is the author of Hitler's Death, A Case Against Conspiracy. He joins me live from Liverpool, England. How did so many Nazis get out, though? And why did the Vatican smuggle them out?
Okay, so the British and American intelligence agencies, they were looking for Nazi war criminals. They didn't just let them all escape. So I've seen files of them looking into this organization Odessa, which is supposed to be an organization for the escape of the SS. Nazis were able to escape. They slipped through the British and American intelligence nets, because countries such as Argentina were sympathetic to them. So Perón's government was sympathetic to the Nazis. Therefore, his immigration minister helped facilitate their escape. Of course, you mentioned before Operation Paperclip, or you alluded to it. So
correct.
There were instances where the British and Americans did help Nazis and even war criminals escape from justice. But from the research I've done into this, the reasons why they did that and the reasons behind their sort of employment of Nazi war criminals after the war, they give us more evidence as to why British and American intelligence services would never have done a deal with Hitler, because they were very selective about the war criminals who they recruited for programs such as Paperclip. If an individual was considered to be uncontrollable, or a security risk, then they wouldn't employ them. They were the two key factors for employment. Can this person be controlled, and is he or she a security risk? Hitler was a huge uncontrollable security risk. They would never have done a deal with them based on the grounds of Paperclip and selection for programs such as that.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to bring you back. The book is Hitler's Death, The Case Against Conspiracy. Luke Daly-Groves, again corroborating and reinforcing contemporaneous accounts by Hugh Trevor Roper and others that Hitler died in his bunker in 1945. Thank you so much for joining us, Luke.
Thanks very much.
And I wish you a wide readership in your book, Hitler's Death. When I come back, debunking another conspiracy that we didn't land on the moon. How bizarre is that? One of my favorite scientists joins us, Richard Zarowski from Halifax. That's next.
Can I come visit you?
You can do what you want to do when you make up your mind and you decide that that's what you're going to do.
James Buddy Day was the last journalist to speak to Charles Manson. With his new book, Hippie Cult Leader, find out who Charles Manson really was and what happened in the summer of '69.
Hippie Cult Leader, available in print, audio, and digital from Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, and Amazon. Don't read about Manson alone.
It's who you're afraid of.